This is a phone. It's great for doing all sorts of stuff like listening to music, watching movies, browsing the internet. But did you know there's another great trick it can do? It's true. Let me show you. Check this out. Man, the things I do for these freaking videos, I tell ya. Whenever I show off a new retro handheld, there are some predictable types of comments that I know I'm gonna get. Most people are super nice and cool. My favorite comments are the ones that make me laugh. And obviously on every video I get the haters who hate me and everything I do and want to let me know how stupid and pathetic and unfunny I am. It's always a nice way to start my day, reading those. Sometimes I get comments from people who disagree with what I said and think they know better than me, as if such a thing was even possible. No, it's not, by the way. But one type of comment I can guarantee that will show up on any video where I talk about handhelds is something along the lines of, why not just use your phone? Or, my phone is better than this. Or, shut up, TechDweeb loser nerd, phone is more good for handheld. And you know what? They're not wrong. Except this guy. I made it pretty clear I'm not a nerd. I'm a dweeb. Learn the difference, dork. But yeah, phones are amazing. They're like the modern day Swiss Army knife of tech. They can do everything. You can use them to check your email, chat with your friends, chat with your enemies, surf the web, listen to music, watch TechDweeb videos, play mobile games, stream PC games, and you can even use them to make phone calls, if you can believe that. And one of the most amazingly amazing things that they can do is play retro games. You can play with standalone emulators or use RetroArch. You can use various front ends to make them feel more like a handheld console. And most phones are actually pretty powerful in terms of emulation. Unless you have a phone that was literally $20 secondhand, there's a very good chance that the phone that you have can play everything up to and including PS1, Nintendo 64, Dreamcast and PSP, Nintendo DS, and even a modest, relatively new phone can handle most 3DS, GameCube, PS2, and even Nintendo Switch. This is a big topic and there's lots to talk about, so grab a snack and drink and let's get started. No, not that snack and drink. Get that crap out of here, you health nut. There, that's better. Just like anything in life, there are pros and cons to using a phone as a retro doodad. And also, just like anything in life, you should listen to me to help you decide. Let's start with the biggest con of the whole phone as a handheld thing. Handhelds are better. This is my opinion. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't, but I think retro handhelds are just so good at what they do. Each of them are unique with nice, tight, compact controls and just enough of the features that you want, depending on which one you get. And some of them are super cheap. It's just a dedicated handheld made to just play games is a beautiful thing. It's my favorite thing ever, actually. And I don't like the thought of missing out on that. However, one pro, which is probably the best benefit of using your phone for retro emulation, you already have a phone with you all the time. And if you don't, get one, I guess. They're pretty great. And it's like the nerds over at Retro Handhelds always say.
The best handheld is the one you have with you.
Thanks, Stubbs.
No problem, TechDweeb. And would you mind asking your mom to give me a quick call? She left something over at my place.
What? Over to the cons, a downside is that while being able to play retro games on your phone is convenient, it's also kind of inconvenient because then you don't have a phone. And sometimes you need a phone and a retro handheld at the same time. You can't be playing Balloon Kid on Game Boy and also recording yourself play Balloon Kid on Game Boy. Or chatting on Discord, or following a walkthrough that you can read while you're in the game at the same time. Or if you get a call, that will interrupt your game. When your phone is in retro handheld mode, it's not a phone, it's a handheld, and you're phoneless. However, the pro side is that since you're gaming on a phone, it's super convenient to do phone stuff on the same device that you're doing retro handheld stuff. Maybe you want to quickly multitask over to a browser so you can look up a walkthrough without having to pull out a second device. Maybe you want to record your gameplay and you can because it's a phone. Maybe you want to do that YouTube picture-in-picture thing so you can play a game and watch a TechDweeb video on the same time on the same screen. There's just all sorts of convenient phone functions that can make your retro gaming more convenient and fun. Back to the downsides, and that's about storage. One of the things that's good about retro handhelds is you can toss in a big old memory card in there and use that to store your games. Or they might even come with hundreds of gigabytes of games pre-installed. On your phone, those hundreds of gigabytes of games are eating into the storage of your phone. And not only will you have to actually care about and manage your game storage, it also means that you'll have less room for audiobooks, comics, photos, and those video files that you like to have on hand. Another pro, and this is only a pro if you're on an Android phone, you're on your own if you're on one of those Apple phones. I don't know about that world. I don't have an Apple phone. Go ask my boy Retro Game Corps about that if you need more info on that. After you watch the rest of this video, of course, because most of this stuff isn't specifically about Android, except for this part that I'm talking about right now. Because emulators on the Android platform are either very well updated and mature, or cutting edge, doing things never before possible. That's all accessible to you as an Android user, so you don't need to wait for PS2 emulation to come to your Linux handhelds, or for the latest version of Dolphin with the latest fixes or whatever. On Android, you get all the latest and best emulators. And also, front-end options. If you like Daijisho, you can use that. I used to like Dig, so I used that, but now I'm an emulation station guy, and I use that. And I can use whichever I like, whenever. Heck, I can even have them all installed at the same time and switch between them anytime I want to. One super obvious downside to using a phone is that you don't get physical controls, unless you add some sort of a controller. Retro handhelds come with built-in controls, and they're usually pretty good. There are good options for adding controls to your phone, which we'll talk about, but that's just an extra thing that you'll need to buy and carry around and deal with if you want physical controls. And let's end with a bang. Our last pro. Your phone is probably the most premium and powerful handheld device that you have. These days, we all want fancy phones that do a ton of stuff with high refresh rate OLED screens and enough power to play games, good speakers for watching TechDweeb on YouTube, all the bells and whistles, you know. So if you already have a good phone, then you already have the best hardware to do some seriously good emulation. You can probably even find used phones on your local market for like $100 that will outperform retro handhelds that cost 2 to 3 times that price. And if you have a banger of a phone, you know, like a flagship phone or whatever, you can turn that into a top-of-the-line retro emulation machine. That is pretty darn cool if you ask me. And it's still pretty darn cool even if you don't. I don't want to do a huge, deep Android setup guide here because I basically already made a video about that. 2 videos actually. One deep guide and one 2-minute setup guide. I was setting up an Android handheld in those videos, but the process is literally exactly the same on a phone. I'll link to those videos below if you want to know how to do all this. You'll just be getting the short version today. So whenever I set up a phone for retro emulation, I start by downloading RetroArch from the Google Play Store, and in RetroArch you can install all the emulation cores for all the systems that you want to emulate. Install your front end of choice. If you want something free, you can go with Daijisho. I like ESDE, which is Emulation Station Desktop Edition. It's not free, it costs $5. And then you need to copy over your games to your device. And the location will depend on which front end you're using. ESDE makes a ROMs folder for you to put your games in there. And your BIOS files can go into the RetroArch system folder. After that, you'll be good to use your front end to browse your games and launch your games. And it all works perfectly once you have it set up. You can also install standalone emulators like Dolphin for GameCube, NetherSX2 for PS2, Lime 3DS for 3DS, PPSSPP for PSP, and Sudachi for that Nintendo handheld that we're not allowed to talk about. And ESDE will automatically launch those games in those emulators. It may sound complicated, but I assure you it's quite easy to figure out. But if you want a walkthrough, then check out my guide. And if you want me to do it for you, well, I'm probably a bit too busy, but I bet Russ from Retro Game Corps would have the time. I doubt he's doing anything important right now. You should go ask him. So this next part of the video is the reason that I wanted to make this video in the first place. Other than to make dumb jokes and flap my hands like a dork and somehow get paid for it. How does that work? I don't know, to be honest. Let's not question it. This next part is about all the different ways that you can actually play retro games on your phone. And there's quite a few of them. More than 4. 5 of them, actually. The first is touchscreen mode, and this might seem like the least ideal way to play retro games. However, believe it or not, this is the way that I personally use to play retro games on my phone most often. And I know you're thinking, TechDweeb, I used to think you were cool, but now that I know you play retro games on your phone using a touchscreen, I hate you. But hear me out. If the best handheld is the one you have with you, You always have your phone with you, right? You may not have a controller to play games in the ideal way, but that does not mean you can't play games. I installed all this emulation garbage on my phone, and when I did, it had touchscreen controls enabled by default. I gave some games a try just because the controls were there, and I was like, oh neat, I guess you can actually play retro games on a touchscreen, and I didn't think much of it at the time. But there's been many times I find myself out, away from home, with my phone as my only device, and the hankering to continue where I left off in a game, and I just start up the game and play with a touchscreen. And it does work. It's not the best way to play platformers or heavy action games, even though you can get by with those, but it's actually totally fine to play slower paced games and especially puzzle games and RPGs. And there is a part of me that is a minimalist at heart, and that part of me loves the idea that my phone, that is my Swiss Army knife, is also a retro gaming machine that you can game on with no additional doodads needed. All of these emulators have built-in touchscreen controls enabled by default, including ESDE and RetroArch and Dolphin and PPSSPP and NetherSX2. If like a year ago you asked me if playing retro games on a touchscreen was a good idea, I'd have screamed, "No way!" and grabbed your phone and threw it out the window and slapped you in the face and ran home crying. But now, I'm the opposite. I'd scream, "Yes way," and give you a kiss on the forehead. Even though touchscreen controls can work, obviously having physical controls is more ideal for retro games. Let's be real. You'll never get a good time in Super Mario World speedruns if you're not on a controller. Basically, every phone out there that can run emulators has Bluetooth, so you can connect up your favorite Bluetooth controller and use that to play your games. And that works totally fine. If you get yourself a little stand, maybe something portable like this flat little plastic stand that I carry around sometimes, or something more permanent like this taller desk stand that I use, something like this turns your phone into like a little retro gaming monitor, or like a TV with built-in game console. It's such a cute thing. I know if I showed this to little TechDweeb, it would have blown his dweeby mind. And the benefit here is that you don't actually need a ton of extra stuff. Heck, this can even be a pocket-friendly setup if you get yourself a little keychain controller like this Shanwan microcontroller. I got one of these just to see what it was like, and I liked it so much that I ended up upgrading to a set of 4. I love these things. They're so small and light that you can carry them around in your pocket all day long, and even though they're small, they are legit controllers. Good D-pad and buttons and big enough to actually play games. I'll include a link to these in the thingamabob below if you want to get one, or a few. I think something like this, of a phone and a stand and a controller, is a great way to play retro games at like a desk or a table or something. However, maybe you don't want to put your phone on a desk or a table. Maybe you want something that turns your phone into more of a handheld that you can use around the house. And maybe you already have a Bluetooth controller like an Xbox or a PlayStation controller. So in that case, something like this is what you need. It's just this little clip that connects onto your controller, and it has this little part up top, this grippy part that holds your phone. And boom, just like that, using the phone and the controller you already have, you instantly have a retro emulation handheld. And here's the thing. Not only do you have a handheld, you actually have arguably the best emulation handheld. I mean, think about it. Your phone already has an amazing screen, probably more powerful than most handhelds, and an Xbox or a PlayStation controller are amazing controllers. They probably blow away any of the built-in controls that you get on all but the best top-of-the-line retro handhelds. So like, just use this if you have this stuff already. This little clip was like, I don't know, $5 or something. I'll try to find a link for this and some other good options and put them in the thingamabob below. And then we have what I personally like the best. If I was using a phone as a retro handheld, I'd be gaming like this most of the time. And that is using a telescopic controller that turns your phone into an actual handheld system. These things can connect up to your phone via USB-C or Bluetooth, and they legitimately make a phone into a handheld that can play games just as good, if not better, than an actual handheld. And if you already have a phone, then the controller itself is way cheaper than a high-end handheld, and it can give you just as good of an experience, if not better. There are lots of these to choose from. I've reviewed a few on my channel, like the GameSir X2 Pro, which is great, the Abixilude S9, which I also liked a lot, and this one that I'm using now is made by 8BitDo. It's their ultimate mobile gaming controller. I really like this one a lot, and one of the things I like about it the most is that it's Bluetooth, so I don't have to deal with my phone case and the USB-C plug, and also I can use it as an actual controller for my phone, even if I'm not holding the phone in my hands. Like if I have it on a table or plugged into a TV or whatever, this is still a controller I can use. I haven't reviewed this one yet. It's pretty new to me, but I love it so far. Great quality controls, and it works wonderfully. And it looks amazing. I love it in white. It makes my phone feel like a proper full-size retro handheld console. Again, I'll have some links for this stuff below if you need to grab one. And this last method is so freaking cool. If you're not doing this with either your phone or a retro handheld, you are missing out on one of the best tricks that these things can do. Home console mode. If your phone has video out over USB-C, you can use a dongle like this to plug it into any TV, and boom, you've got yourself an actual gaming console. If I'm going somewhere overnight, like a hotel or whatever that has a TV, and I'm not bringing a bunch of stuff, I'll just bring along a little controller and plug my phone into the TV, and while it's charging, I'm sitting back playing games on it as if I brought along a GameCube or a PS1 or Super Nintendo or whatever. And if I go to a gathering, like a family thing, or if my non-existent friends ever invite me over to hang out, you know I'm bringing a set of those mini controllers, waiting for the time to be just right, and then yelling, "Hey, watch this!" And I'll plug my phone into the TV, fire up Turtles in Time, shove the controllers into the hands of the nearest nerds, and within a few seconds we're playing games and having a hoot. And if no one wants to play, screw them. I'll play by myself. I'll beat the game all by myself too. And then they'll watch on and just be super jealous. If there's one thing that you should take away from this video, it's that Stubbs is probably going to be my new dad soon.
I'm proud of you, son.
Thanks, Pa. And if there's two things that you should take away, it's that phones are just versatile emulation devices. So if you aren't sold on the idea of a dedicated handheld, or if you just love the idea of your Swiss Army knife piece of magic glass fun box that lives in your pocket that can also be a gateway to the greatest library of games known to man, then just lean into the fact that you have access to the entire history of gaming itself on the same doodad that you watch TechDweeb videos on while you poop. That's it from me. I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.